Hello, heathens! I'm Megan Angus, and this is Spinning the Wheel podcast. In this weekly audio ritual, we explore the 8 seasons of the witch's wheel of the year, and we discover how it is so much more than 8 Sabbats. We weirding witches time travel through holy days, festivals, and celestial events connecting our celebrations and magic to the past, present, and future. Our cackling fills the night as we take our turn gathering the wool, wielding the distaff, and spinning the wheel. Good day to you, my blessed weirdos. Welcome back. Hi. Yet another week of this ridiculousness. Here we go. Let's do the thing and then we'll do the thing, right? Okay. First off, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for checking this out one more time. I have a lot planned for 2023 with this podcast and other things that I'm doing in the world. So I'm glad that you're here. And I hope you enjoy. And side note, if there's stuff, I say this occasionally, but I feel like you guys don't take me seriously on this. If there is stuff that you really want me to focus on in this podcast, let me know. Send me a DM, send me an email through my website. I'm curious. If you're just like, it's delightful and perfectly wonderful the way it is, lovely. That's great. I appreciate. But I really do want this to be, a useful tool for you every week, as well as, a type of a touchstone, as well as like, a moment and all of that. So yeah, if there's something that you wish I did more of, or you wish I would bring back, we've done lots of changes in the last few months on the podcast. Let me know. Let me know. Okay. Along those lines, please, like, subscribe, leave a rating, leave a review. The algorithm robots love that stuff. I love that stuff. I'm very appreciative of it. It is, in fact, one of the dopest ways that you can support this podcast. And share it with your friends and family. Share it in your social media platforms. Again, super appreciative. It always makes me feel so special. Oh my God. Okay. That's enough of that. Okay. What else is going on? I am still offering year ahead readings for folks. I am not going to be offering them for too much longer. So if you want to sign up for a year ahead reading, please head to my website ASAP and sign up and get it while you can. Okay, our next class is going to be Imbolc. This is Imolga is also another pronunciation of this holiday. This is the next Sabbath that is coming up on the wheel. I often, well, let me say this first. The class will be held, most likely, on Wednesday, January 25th. This will be another live stream on my YouTube channel, perfectly free to the world, thanks to the support of my incredible, freakish, wonderful, ridiculous, and rather sassy patrons. Without you, none of this would be occurring. So thank you so much. If you love this podcast and you would like to support it, please subscribe to my Patreon. You can subscribe for as little as $1. And that's just your way of giving me a high five financially and saying thanks for the podcast. I don't run ads on the podcast, and I don't run ads on my live streams or my videos on YouTube because I don't want to. And I would rather just, keep that between us. If you subscribe at $5 and higher, which is the Mercury level, You get extra stuff when you subscribe at the Venus level, which is $9 a month and higher. You get access to the workbooks that I am always referring to in the classes, and the calendar that we talk about every week, and a bunch of other stuff, and as well as Tarot Circle, which I have some things to talk about with Tarot Circle people. And folks who are subscribed at the $23 level and up, that's the sun level, you get readings with me multiple times a year to integrate this work. And when you subscribe at the Jupiter level or higher, which is $66 a month and higher, you get a 40-minute reading or an hour reading or a 2-hour reading with me once a month, to really work on whatever you want to work on. We can look at your astro transits every month. We can look at, we can pull tarot for you every month, whatever you want. Think of it as kind of like your monthly diagnostic with me, your witch, Megan Angus. And that's my way of saying thanks to you for supporting this work. You get the readings plus all of the other stuff too. So, it's a deal. Trust me, it's a really good deal compared to my standalone reading prices. Okay. So next class that's coming up is going to be in bulk. That's Wednesday, January 25th. It will be a live stream on my YouTube channel. Join us. Come harass me in chat, or try. Otherwise, it will be up eventually on my website, also for free. Okay. I mentioned Tarot Circle. I don't think I'm going to do a traditional Tarot Circle this month. I think instead this is going to be our year ahead astrology podcast. And I haven't decided if I'm just going to do that as a podcast or if I'm going to do that as a Zoom. I think I might do it as a Zoom. This will be for patrons, but again, everybody that is a patron is welcome to attend. So that's $1 and up. And this will be just kind of going over an hour and a half approximately, looking at the major astrology of this coming year. And if folks have some questions, we can talk about stuff. We're not going to get too hardcore into analyzing anybody's charts, but if you have a question about things, we can talk it out. I'm looking forward to that. And so on that note, I think that Tarot Circle is going to be changing this year into something else. And that is also reflected in another change that I'm going to make. You probably have noticed every week I name the lunar week that we are in, and the pattern that I have been following for the lunar weeks has been set by one of the many calendars that we have to choose from. It's the calendar that Hindis and lots of folks in Asia and Southeast Asia follow. I usually orient my calendar to the Lunar New Year, which is next week. Our next new moon that we have kicks off the new Lunar New Year, which we will, of course, talk about. But I will not be restarting my calendar then. I am going to let some time run out. And in the tradition of other pagan groups and the Greco-Roman groups, et cetera, allow February to sort of be a kind of a time out of time. And we will be restarting our calendar in March. I will continue to do the podcasts. We're just going to float a little bit, though. Woo! And we're going to pick a new calendar, and we are going to follow that calendar and its energy for a year and see what that feels like. And so in that paradigm shift, I will be taking away some offerings, and I will be bringing forth some offerings, and some things are going to shift and change. I hope for, I don't want to say the better, but I hope for the expansion of it all, right? Sagittarius, I'm ruled by Jupiter. It's like more is more. So we've been following a certain calendar. We felt that rhythm for a couple of years. I want us to try a new calendar and feel its rhythm and see what that's like. I think that this is in some ways going to dial us in a little closer to our paganism and our heathenry and our witchcraft rhythms. But we'll see. We'll see. And this again is a place where I'm really open to feedback, and I want to hear, if it makes a difference for you, and if so, what. Okay. So last but not least, want to give a big shout out to our local wizard elite, William Kiesel, down at Mortlake and Company, Pioneer Square. If you're here in the Seattle area, or if you're visiting Seattle, please go check out his bookstore and art gallery. It is a gem. And he is offering weekly or bi-weekly classes through a group out of LA called 22 Teachings, which is an incredible magic study group. His bi-weekly classes are called The Lantern. You can find out more information through 22 Teachings or through his website, Ouroboros Press, or through his Instagram account is sometimes one of the places to get information. Again, Ouroboros Press. But he is considering offering basic classes in Hermeticism and Hermetic Kabbalah. And if that's something that you've been wanting to get more involved with, go check out his work. Highly recommend that guy. He really is truly a wizard and a gem in our community, and he is putting those offerings up into the world. Okay, that's enough of that. Let's get into this week and this stuff that we are doing here in this podcast with me, your witch, Megan Angus, here on Spinning the Wheel. Okay. All right, so to get us oriented in our work this week, this is Yule season, waning half moon in Libra, lunar week 48 by some lunar calendars. And to orient us in our Yule work, our major themes for witches that we are focusing on, Yule season is all about a return to source, death and rebirth, wisdom, and ancestors. And we work with these concepts as concepts. We work with them as ritual practices, as ceremony practices, as celebratory practices. And we also work with them in various archetypes like gods, goddesses, guides, ancestors, and others who kind of step forward, right? We dive into our folklore, we dive into our myth, and our symbolism that's dialed in with all of this stuff. And in particular, this season really focuses on the rebirth of the sun, the renewal of the self, kindling the sacred fire, meditating on our own gained experience and wisdom, hibernating, goddess bless, witnessing the eternal goddess, reaffirming our connection to spirit, and affirming life and order in the face of death and chaos. This is all of the stuff that witches and heathens are in turn, pagans are in turn focusing on. Some groups are going to focus on some of this stuff more than others. Some are going to be really narrow in their view, some are very broad in their view, but these themes kind of run throughout time when we're talking about groups of witches, pagans, heathens, etc. And so, with that, let's get into how do I want to do it this week? We've been bouncing around a lot. I'm like, ooh, I want to talk about this. Wait, no, I want to talk about that. This is what it's like in my head. Side note. Let's talk about our holy days, and then we're going to get into the moon and the astrology of this week and all of that stuff. What do we have for holy days? We have a lot, but not a lot. And that's because we have a lot of the same holidays hitting the same themes over and over and over again. And they've already been happening, they're currently happening, or they're happening this week. And what I mean by that is that throughout Yule season, there's a lot of consistency in the festivals and the celebrations and the ritualism, the holy days themselves. And a lot of them are multiple days or even multiple weeks. And so in a way, to look at the days of the calendar, like there are some days that are really piled up, but a lot of days are quite empty, and that's because we're still under the auspices of these other holidays that are lasting for several days up to a few weeks. Because again, the season is very dialed in. And what are we focusing on? That stuff that I just talked about, coming back to source and like a renewal of our spiritual practices, witnessing the goddess as this eternal entity, and reconnecting with ancestors, and really celebrating the rebirth of the sun, the renewal of the self, like being in darkness, because of course here for us in the Northern Hemisphere, we've just had winter solstice. We're still, certainly in very short days and very long nights. It's only been, 3 weeks basically since the winter solstice. Um, and focusing on, as we move through Capricorn season, we're about to move into Aquarius season, for the tropical astrology folks, really focusing on our own gained experience and our gained wisdom, our earned wisdom. And why I say gained experience or earned wisdom is because I really want to emphasize that is built out of what you have actually lived through in this lifetime. It's not just, oh, I read a poem and now I know something, or I listened to this podcast and I've picked up all this wisdom, or whatever. It's like, what have you learned by literally going through some shit? That's a lot of the gold, if you will, that we are mining in Yule season. And, that's the light that's coming through out of the darkness, is like the light that we carry in ourselves. And that comes from what we have personally experienced in this lifetime. And all of us lead different lives. All of us process our experience in different ways. But it results in my opinion, it results in a collection of wisdom, a collection of knowing, right? And no one's knowing is complete. All of us have missing parts to that. All of us have maybe an abundance of some types of experiences and maybe a lack of other types of experiences. And so we want to be aware of that too, right? We only know what we know. And we need to find a way to also be comfortable with what we don't know. Sure. But this season in particular is very focused on, what do I know and how did I come to know it? And our lunar work, which we will get to in a bit, is going to incorporate some of this, right? Of like, what do I know and how did I come to knowing it? Again, our lunar work is going to ask us to take a look at that from a very particular viewpoint. What am I trying to say? Okay, I think you know what I mean. Perspective. There's the word, from a very particular perspective. Look, I'm a professional, okay? I know what's happening. Everything's under control. Okay, so let's get started with our lunar week here. We have a waning half moon at 24 degrees of Libra, Saturday the 14th, 6:10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, later in the day / the next day for everybody else around the planet. And what are we doing with that? Oh wait, I said I was going to do the holidays first. Again, I'm a professional and everything is under control. Okay, I know what I'm doing. We are going to do the festivals first. Okay, so what do we have happening? Saturday the 14th, we have the Old New Year. Now, this is one of those things where the Gregorian calendar and the Julian calendar are jostling for control. But it also falls into our various rhythms of 12th night and Epiphany and all of that stuff. Old New Year is an extension of the Epiphany celebrations, the Collada celebrations from our Eastern European friends and ancestors. And so depending on which calendar you were following, some of that stuff has already kicked off and we're well on into it, and some of that stuff is kicking off now. because again, just depends on which calendar you're following. Um, Also on this day, we have Makara Sankranti from our Hindi friends and ancestors. This is the celebration of Surya, which is the sun god, literally the embodiment of the sun. It also celebrates the sun moving into the sign of Capricorn for folks who practice Vedic astrology slash sidereal astrology. And that is astrology that is based on what is physically happening in the sky. I know, I know. It's always confusing. But tropical astrology is about 2,000 years behind. Yeah, I do it too. I use it as well. But also, we need to know that our paradigm is going to have to shift here at some point. Um, for those folks who actually follow what's happening in the sky, uh, the sun is just now moving into the constellation of Capricorn, and this is a big celebration of the sun, Surya. Um, Also on this day, we have the Feast of the Ass. And this is a celebration from our Catholic friends and ancestors, celebrating literally the donkey that Jesus and Mary and Joseph rode on. The donkey in some places was literally brought into the church and brought behind the pew. But I have an interesting, darker, or like weirder connection to this festival, or that I see, anyways, because I'm crazy from studying this for so long. Um, Capricorn, the sign of Capricorn, is connected to the devil card. And one of the nicknames of the devil, quote unquote, is the donkey headed adversary or the donkey headed deity. Satan or Lucifer or the adversarial deity of Catholicism and Christianity was oftentimes depicted with a donkey's head. Interesting, right? As I said, the Capricorn is connected to the devil card in tarot, and there you go, right? Is that a stretch? Maybe, right? I'm always the first one to admit that maybe I'm stretching here. But I don't think so. I think that there's a connection there, especially when we think of the fact that there is this celebration of light and the sun, and Lucifer is a light deity. Lucifer is a deity that brings light to things. Lucy, Saint Lucy, we've just had their celebration a few weeks ago, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know me, I'm always going off on a tangent, but there's that little devilry to get the week started. Okay, moving on to Sunday the 15th. We have the feast of Neteret Amenet Re Mut. This is from our Egyptian friends and ancestors, mostly Egyptian ancestors. This is ancient Egypt, not modern Egypt, generally speaking. But Amenet is the consort of Amun, of Ra. She was sort of blended with the goddess Mut or Nut at some point. And she is a primordial goddess. She is one of the early ancient Egyptian goddesses and is a producer and a sustainer. So a goddess that is connected to Ra, the sun, and a mother goddess. And we know that a big part of our Yule archetypes that we hang out with are these progenitrix goddesses that are producing the light of the world. They themselves are embodiments of wisdom, experience, knowledge, gnosis, right? And they are in turn producing the light of the world. Or birthing the light of the world. Also on this day, we have the Feast of Black Christ from our friends, Catholic friends and ancestors in South America. And then from our Roman friends and ancestors, we have the sowing festival of Semen Tive, which is literally the beginning of the sowing season, or the getting the farmland ready season. It's a 3-day festival that kicks off right about now. We just had Plow Monday and Plow Sunday, and so we are right in line. Modern and ancient holidays all getting us lined up for preparing the land for whatever is going to come in spring. Yes, it really does actually start now. just a couple of weeks after winter solstice. Monday the 16th, the only thing that we really have going on Monday the 16th, oh, actually, this is the day of the Feast of the Ass. Whatever, it's around this time, it's fine. But we also have the heliacal rise of the fixed star Terabellum. Terabellum is natively found in the constellation of Sagittarius. And this star, I couldn't find out too much about it, but there was some interesting little clues, little phrases that were connected with this star that really like piqued my interest. And I kind of went down some rabbit holes. They seem to have dead ends, but this is one of those ones where it's like, I'm going to put a pin in that. We're coming back to this. But Terabellum is as I said, it's a fixed star that's natively found in the constellation of Sagittarius. It's currently in Capricorn, or Capricorn is in front of it, is really the correct way to say that. And it is part of a four-sided area that's basically the ass of Sagittarius. So so there's that. Delicious, wonderful, we love. But it's also referred to, like, Terabellum also means tetrapluron, or four-sided thing. That, of course, makes me think about Tetragrammaton, the four-letter name of God, but again, maybe I'm just stretching there. But there's a phrase, the green sanguine, that is connected with this star and with the constellation of Sagittarius in general. And it literally means the place where green turns into red, or where red turns into green. I would recommend just like hanging out with a color wheel for a while and letting your eyes kind of go wonky. Those of us who dabble in the Enochian magics know that the seal of the South, the Southern seal, or the seal of fire, is incorporating like interconnected rings of red and green. There is a reason why red and green are the traditional colors of Yule and Christmas time. Go figure, right? So that's all I got. That's it. But there's something there, huh? It feels like there's something there. Maybe we're just stretching. Everybody have a nice stretch, drink some water with your stretching. But it feels like there's something there. Sagittarius, Christmas time, red and green being the colors of the seal of the South, or the seal of fire in Enochian magic. Yeah, something interesting there. Not sure. But okay, that's it. That's all I've got for that. That's all that's happening also, by the way, on the 16th. So Monday the 17th, we have from our modern friends and ancestors, our modern sorry, I'm like, what are my notes? Where are my notes? My notes. We have from our modern pagan Wheel of the Year calendars, from January 17th through the 19th, the Feast of Fates. And I say this from time to time, that these are from our modern pagan friends and ancestors, because studying the Wheel of the Year and adapting this idea to the rest of the stuff happening around the world, past and present, is something that's become really popular over the last 20 years. And there are fragments of this research all over the internet. And you can find calendars that have been copied and recopied and reposted and, reposted and reposted, that have these holidays that are sort of plunked down. And there isn't necessarily historical precedent, and then sort of there is historical precedent for it. So this is the Feast of Fates, and it certainly makes sense. These would be the gods and goddesses and archetypes and rulers of the past, the present, and the future. So honoring goddesses like the Moirae, from Old Greece, the Norns, Kotlikyu from our Aztec friends and ancestors, Pachamama from our Incan friends and ancestors, Manat from Persia, Providence from our Christian and Catholic friends and ancestors, and I'm sure you can think of other fate deities, the Three Sisters, the Weird Sisters, etc., etc. Why? Because again, we are still at the beginning of the year, and a lot of holidays or a lot of civilizations haven't actually even started their new year yet, or they're starting it with the new moon that's about to happen. And so plunking this down here, in like basically in the middle ish of January makes a lot of sense. We want to check in with the fates. We want to check in with those deities that have a foot in the past and a foot in the present and a foot in the future. Um, and so, along those same lines from our Roman friends and ancestors, this day is also the feast of Janus Bifrons. And Janus Bifrons is a deity that's literally depicted with two heads, one facing backwards and one facing forwards. And the one facing backwards is old, and the one facing forwards is young. Janus Bifrons is the god of all beginnings, gates, transitions, time, duality. Janus Bifrons oversees literal doorways and passages and endings, as well as, like I just said, beginnings. Um, and I love that, like, Janus is even mentioned in Ovid's Fasti, uh, where he's sort of listing off all of the things that are happening, throughout January or throughout the holidays and the days, really the calends of the year. And in this, he says, "See how Janus appears first in my song to announce a happy year for you, Germanicus. Two-headed Janus, source of the silently gliding year, the only god who is able to see behind him," etc., etc., etc. So, this day also recognized through this deity as well, and that's really what's up. It's a fantastic day for throwing some bones, for throwing some shells, if those are or divinatory practices that you work with. If not, working with runes, working with tarot, working with other oracle systems, scrying, any kind of divining on this day is really appropriate. Given that our week is starting off with Libra, and I'll talk about this a little bit more at the end of the podcast, but given that our week is starting off with a waning moon in Libra, watching clouds, watching smoke in the air from incense, like make a sacred incense blend, etc., etc. These are all really powerful ways of divining the fate of you and your loved ones in this coming year. Okay, then we move to Wednesday the 18th, and this is the day of Danu. And Danu is Irish goddess, um, and she was the correct way to think about her is that she is a reconstructed goddess. She is a mother goddess of the Tuatha De Danann, and which means the peoples of the goddess Danu. Um, and and she is, by modern pagans, thought of as an ancestral figure and an old goddess, but her name is not found in any medieval texts. Her name is but really her name is a reconstruction by modern scholars based on the genitive Danan, right? We're saying Tuatha De Danann. So the people of Danann. Who's that? The people of Danu, the people of this goddess or this entity, this force called Danu. And so modern scholars are like, well, there must have been a deity, a goddess named Danu. The tribe of the gods of Danu is another way of saying Tuatha De Danann. And so in Irish mythology, we have a goddess named Anu, who is also Anan or Anna or Anand. She may be a distinct goddess in her own right, or these two may be versions of each other. And what I think is really interesting, just as a side note, is that we also have in Vedic myth for our Hindu friends and ancestors a water goddess named Danu, whose name means to run or to flow like a river, right? Like water, like a river. Her name might be the source for the name of the river Danube. Whoa, right? Check that out. That's pretty cool. Um, and so studying Danu, but also studying Anu or Danand or any of the iterations of these names is very appropriate on this day. We even have a connection to the Welsh legendary figure Don that we see in the Mabinogion. Um, Again, a mythical mother goddess type character. So lots of really interesting connections with this stuff. Now, check this out. The very next day, Thursday, the 19th, is Timcat. This is a festival, a holy day recognized by Coptic Christians, mostly Ethiopia, but there are Coptic Christians in a few other parts of the world. What is Timcat? It's the celebration of the day that Jesus is baptized in a river. I'm sure it's just a coincidence, as we like to say here on the podcast. But hello, what? Yeah, just that. Just that. That's all we're doing there on Thursday the 19th. Timcat, Jesus baptized in a river, a river that that likes to flow, I'm sure. Right? Yeah. To run, to flow. Interesting stuff. All right, moving on to Friday the 20th. We really have nothing. So I'm going to bounce forward just for one brief second and say that on Saturday 21st is our Asian New Year, Lunar New Year. This is the year of the water rabbit. Hello. It's on and on and on, honestly. You know what I mean? It's like, it never ends. And this is also the day that the sun enters the sign of Aquarius, the water bearer. Well, that's technically Friday the 20th. We'll talk about that more in our astrology portion, which is coming up here shortly. But the 21st is the new moon. That's the kickoff for Lunar New Year. And so the reason why I'm mentioning it in this podcast versus just saving any mention of it until next week is because it's a huge celebration. And I'm stoked that it's happening on a weekend, which means if there is a Lunar New Year party or celebration near you, go attend. Go check it out. The celebration is fantastic. The decorations are amazing. The spirits are lively. If you haven't been to a Lunar New Year celebration, I don't want to ruin it for you. I don't want to burst the surprise, but there's always really incredible parades and really incredible presentations and art and just cultural celebration out the wazoo. It's a fantastic festival, and it is for literally billions of people around the planet the new year. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. Let's now get into the astrology of this week. We don't actually have a whole lot to talk about in the astrology of this week, which is kind of wild. But it sort of makes sense with the larger patterns that we're in. Okay, let's get into it. But before that, how about an ad? Okay. If you love this podcast, you can support this work through Patreon. Thank you a bajillion billion times. See, the sirens are going off even as I say it. Thank you so much to my patrons. You guys don't even know. You don't even know. Thank you so much. You can sub for as little as $1 if you just think this podcast is dope and you want to support it. I don't run ads on the podcast, partly because I don't want to, and partly because I won't get paid even if I do. So screw them, man. You can sub, as I said, for as little as $1 or $5, even if you want to just support the podcast. And this is plenty of information. But if you want even more information, extra podcasts, extra videos, extra information about the Wheel of the Year, magical practices, tarot, etc., subbing at the higher levels, you get all kinds of cool free stuff. And at the even higher levels, you get free readings every month with me to be able to integrate all of this information into your personal life based on what's going on in your natal chart and all of that other good stuff. Join and change your life forever. Or, whatever. Thanks so much for the support. If you can't support financially, I completely understand, because life sucks on Earth right now. It's too expensive for everything. Tell a friend, share it on social media, give it a thumbs up. If you're feeling especially hedonistic, you can leave a rating or a review. All right, that's the end of the ad. Let's get back to the podcast. Okay, now let's get into the astrology. We start the week off, Saturday the 14th, with a waning half moon in Libra, 24 degrees at 6:10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time later in the day / the next day for everybody else around the planet. So, what do we have going on with this moon? Well, first off, let's remember where we are in the lunar cycle. When we are in a waning half moon, we are approaching the end of the lunar cycle. We have one more lunar phase after this, and then we have a new moon. So the waning half moon is about undoing things, about deconstructing, letting things go, reducing, cutting off, ending, preparing to do that stuff. When we have our half moons, whether it's waxing or waning, the moon and sun are square to each other. And when we're working with a square in astrology, there can be some tension. That's what's up. That's what's going on with a square. A square is saying parts of this don't work, which is normal. That's totally healthy. Nothing's perfect, right? So the square points out the parts that aren't working or could be working better, right? Sometimes a waning square isn't about failure. It isn't about like, oh, I tried to do this thing and it failed. It's about it can be about, hey, I did this thing and it succeeded, but where could it be even better than the success I've already had? So we want to be open to what ways the waning square might be working for us, or what kind of work it might be pointing to for us. So what are we doing with the waning square in Libra? Well, Libra is all about our relationships. It's all about how we're connecting with people and the we in our life, right? If we think about the opposing sign partnerships that are out there, Aries is the opposing sign to Libra, and Aries is all about what I need, what I want. Libra is all about what we need, what we want, what the group is doing. And it's not the large group, it's the tiny group. It's me and my partnerships. It's me and my very small collective, my intimate collective. And here, there is a conversation around what's not working in those places, / is everybody's needs getting met, / are we holding on to old behaviors or old partnership dynamics that are comfortable, but we're outgrowing them and it's time to like move into a new phase of partnership or whatever. It certainly doesn't mean like, oh, there's a waning moon in Libra, it's time to break up or anything like that. It just means that this is a time of reevaluating what's going on, and the stuff that's not working is what's going to stand out. And so just inherently, because it's relationships, because it's emo, right? It can feel like a oh no, but it certainly doesn't have to be an oh no. This is a very healthy thing. If you have a healthy relationship, you should be analyzing it on some occasion, right? Like you should be taking a moment to be like, are you good? Am I good? What's not working for you? What's not working for me? What can we do about that? That's healthy. That's appropriate to do that every now and then. And in particular with this moon, Reading through Moon Phase Astrology by Raven Caldera, we talk about all the time on here. The work that Raven is recommending for this is thinking about our friendships in particular. Um, but, on the broad scope, relationships in general, our ships in general, our emo world, our emotional world in general, and thinking about the ways that we judge folks, um, and really taking a look at our biases, not just who am I judging and how, but how am I judging them, and why am I using this criteria to judge this person in one way or another? So, if this is about a romantic relationship or a domestic partnership that you're in, like, yeah, on the most fundamental level of this, there's this sense of, do we need to check in? What's not working? Let's work on that. Um, you know, do we need to make some adjustments here? Let's talk about it. Let's work on that. Um, but on the meta level, there's also a personal conversation of, why am I judging this person in this way? What am I expecting? What are they expecting? It's not so much of a what gives me the right, but it's more of a, where did I come up with these standards in the first place? Are these standards appropriate for me or for this person that I'm judging or for this relationship that I'm judging? Maybe they are, and maybe they're not. I'm not leaning in any particular way because I don't know what's going on with you, right? But you know me, I love the meta conversation of this stuff. It's not just, is my relationship functional, but it's, how am I choosing what functional looks like? That part too, I think, is really important here. Um, and as I was saying, like, this stuff all kinds of leads into things, because with our stuff that we're talking about in Yule season, there's this big focus of meditating on our gained experience and our earned wisdom, right? And as I said at the beginning of the podcast, that stuff comes out of what we have personally experienced in this lifetime. So, are your personal experiences in this lifetime informing your biases? Of course they are. Crib notes, yes. Spoiler, yes. And in what ways, right? Are they informing them in positive ways or reductive ways? Are they informing them in from a place of scarcity? Hi, me, it's me. Um, and and as much as this is work that we are doing in the we portion of the event, there's also an I portion to that work as well, right? In what ways have my personal experiences created the biases that I bring into my relationships? And so when I say this isn't working, or this is weird, or this is problematic, is that what's that based in? What's that based in? And again, this is a tough conversation. It's kind of abstract. Hi, air signs, right? Libra. But it's also really healthy and really necessary. To check in with your partner or your partners. What's not working for you? What's not working for me? And can we work on that? But then also to have the internal dialogue of, where did I come up with these standards in the first place? How have my past experiences informed my biases that I'm currently living in? And what do I need to do about that? If anything, what do I need to do about that? So that's all that's going on with this moon. You know me, it's just witchcraft. It's no big deal. The other planets that are aspecting this moon are Pluto, which is at 28 degrees of Capricorn. So the sun and Pluto are more or less conjunct right now. And we also have Saturn in Aquarius at 23 degrees. So Pluto, Saturn also aspecting this moon, not to the degree, but they're there. They're in the conversation. And, Saturn wants us to stick with the tried and true. It wants us to stay where it's safe, right? We don't want to challenge anything. There's a reason why. I've had these bad experiences, and that's why I know XYZ, right? That's exactly the stuff that we want to challenge. And also the square from Pluto. And Pluto is saying, hey, man, lady, person, whatever, those of us who know better, like, we have to challenge our biases on a regular basis. We need to look at this. And whatever it is that we believe about this stuff, we're going to manifest in the world in one way or another. And so, yeah, this is rocky work. Yeah, this is tough work. Yeah, it can feel cold sometimes. It can feel like a bummer sometimes in the midst of all of the celebration. But we need to have these tough conversations to truly grow into, um, the incredible light beings that we can be. And the incredible souls, right? The incredible pers- perspective and potential. That's the word that I'm going for here. Perspective, you've already had your chance in this podcast. It's on to another P word. The incredible potential that we have as individuals, and the incredible potential that we have in our couplings, in our relationships, in our friendships, our ships, that stuff. So that's all. That's all we're doing with this moon. And it's really setting the tone for the week, I think. Which means that for the whole week, we might be a little bit in our feels. We might be, uh, you know, dialing into that emo place a little bit all week long, and especially where our emotional realms mesh with other people's emotional realms. Okay. When we are working with our waning moon in Libra for our lunar body work, we are resting, nourishing, relaxing, supporting, or otherwise restoring the hips and the kidneys, which are doing a lot of work to filtrate, to filter, and to send good stuff back. And again, as I say every week, don't listen to me, some lady yelling on the internet about witchcraft. Listen to your trusted health advisor to make sure that this information is appropriate for you. But also, I always encourage, even if it is appropriate for you, I always encourage working with the metaphor. So in this square moment, right, between the sun and moon, we are looking at what's not working, but we also want to be looking at what is working and making sure that we're saving the stuff, that we're not just throwing the baby out with the bathwater, as they say. For our plant body work, just like when the moon is in Virgo, aesthetics only. Don't do anything hardcore with your plants. Wipe down your plant leaves very gently, dust your pots, dust your plant stands, sweep around your outdoor plants, give them a little sprucing, some twinkle lights, some decorations. That's it. That's all we need to be doing with the plants right now. Okay. Moving on to the rest of what I'm also going to mention is happening on Saturday. I wasn't going to talk about this, but um, we have Venus in Aquarius square Uranus retrograde in Taurus at 14 degrees. And part of the reason is because I'm recording this on Sunday. And so technically this has already passed. The influence of this is waning, but perhaps something has happened over your weekend this will shine some light on. Venus square Uranus is very shocking, stimulating love encounters, relationship encounters. It can be shocking or stimulating information. There could be a lot of flirty texting happening. There could be a lot of like, wow, that information came out of left field in your relationship world. Again, sitting, pretty comfortably in a sense with that square, right? Of like, hey, we need to talk about some stuff. And somebody says, well, actually, this is not working for me. And it's like, whoa, I had no idea. But what is important, I think, to say about this, again, because the effect of this is relatively fast, it's Venus making the transit. So Venus will be on their way, relatively quickly, but still. Don't make more of it than it is. Listen, give it its due, but don't turn it into this megalith of importance and like, oh my god, this is the conversation that this entire relationship pivots on. Probably not. Probably not. Don't give it more emphasis than it requires. Don't give it more emphasis than it deserves. Okay. Sunday the 15th, the moon moves into Scorpio. Everybody calm down. No, revenge is not always the best way to deal with things. Not always. But that's literally all I have to say about that. Monday the 16th, there's nothing happening of note. Tuesday the 17th, the moon moves into Sagittarius, and that brings us to Wednesday the 18th, where a bunch of astrology is all piled up for no good reason. Wednesday the 17th, we have, first and foremost, we have Mercury stationing direct at 8 degrees of Capricorn. This is happening at 5:11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time later in the day for everybody else around the planet. What can this look like? You know what's up with Mercury retrogrades, right? So you also know what's up with a Mercury stationing direct. It is, of course, stationing direct in Capricorn. This is a sign that rules the body, the skeletal frame, the teeth, the bones, the skin, the hair. So just, any days that Mercury is stationing retrograde or direct, I recommend slow down, take your time, read the fine print. Yeah, I know it's stationing direct, but it's still a little wonky. And have a friend read the fine print. Slow down in traffic. Pay attention to where you're walking. Pay attention to where you're driving. Just be a little more present. Take it easy. Take it slow. Relax. But generally speaking, new information. That's often what comes for us when Mercury stations direct, is this piece of information that's been hiding in the wings suddenly appears. And is like, ta-da, here's that message you were waiting on. Here's that return text you were waiting on. Here's the rest of the conversation, or at least the rest for now. And Capricorn, again, is about the body. It's about how we embody things, how we physically manifest the thing. Capricorn is also about our long-term goals, our business plans, our business acumen, our career trajectory. So this might be a day where you start to get some clarity around what you're really moving towards in 2023, or just in general. It might be like you've had some abstract thoughts and you've had some goals and things have been sort of floating around. And then as Mercury stations direct, this starts to come into clarity. You start to find the words to describe where you're wanting to head, where you want to go. So really great day, I think, for focusing on that kind of stuff. Maybe not early in the day, but certainly later in the day. And letting that information come through. Remember also, the 17th, this is our Feast of Fates. This is our Feast of Janus Bifrons. So it is, in fact, a really great day for asking for messages directly from the universe and directly from Source, our guides, our gods and goddesses. Because, boom, we've just had, or it's not the same day, it's the day later, but we've just had, the planet of communication stationing direct. So, hello. Okay. Also on this day, actually, you know what? I'm going to take a moment. No, I'm not. I lied. No moments will be taken here. Also on this day, we have the sun conjunct Pluto in Capricorn at 28 degrees. Now, what can this feel like? Anytime we're dealing with a transit to Pluto, things can feel very intense. And they might be really intense, or they might just feel intense. And we may not be able to tell the difference. So be patient with yourself on this day. Take everything with a bit of a grain of salt, especially your own internal reactions to things. Like, oh my gosh, take a breath. What do I always say? Take a walk around the block, put yourself in timeout for a minute. Like, wow, I'm really flipping out over this thing. I'm really tripping on this. Cool. Okay, good. Good for me. I recognized that. This situation may or may not deserve an intense reaction. I can't be sure just yet. Let me take a few breaths before I respond, not react. This could be a great day for plunging the depths of something. Pluto is very investigatory, is that even a word? Very investigative, wants to get to the bottom of things, wants to plunge the depths of things. it could be a really great day for repairing something that is broken. And that something could be a physical object. We are talking about Capricorn. Um, but it could also be repairing a conversation, repairing a relationship, repairing a situation. This could be a really great day for doing that stuff. Other things that could come up, though, power issues, power struggles, or confrontations with people that represent power and deep forces in our world. Again, because it's Pluto, this might just be stuff that you see play out in the world, but it's the sun, so you may feel it on a personal level. And here is where you need to kind of be present with yourself to say to yourself, is this actually something that's affecting me? Or am I just deeply affected by this thing that is occurring? It exists, but it doesn't have anything to do with me. Like I said, it can be difficult to tell sometimes when it's Pluto. Um, Coming back to our moon, that was what I wanted to make note of. Duh. Our moon is balsamic at 13 degrees of Sagittarius at 7:55 a.m. later in the day for everybody else around the planet. And the balsamic moon represents the last stages of the current lunar cycle before we head into the next lunar cycle. So why I absolutely love that this phase of the moon is referred to as balsamic, because it always makes me think of vinegar. And the first word that might come for you when you think of vinegar is bitter, and that's fair. But the first word that I think of when I think of vinegar is condense, to condensation, um, because that's a key factor in making vinegar, is taking the results of all of this effort and condensing it down into something that's really potent. It just takes a few drops for the message to get through on what it's trying to do. um, Vinegar is the result of so much work, right? There were seeds and they had to be planted and they had to be grown, and that vine had to produce a fruit, and that fruit had to come to fruition, and then it had to ripen, and then we had to pick it, and then we had to do stuff with it, and then we had the leftovers from that, and we decided these are the leftovers, I'm not working with that, and then that stuff is ultimately broken down and condensed into vinegar. So, you know, I think of the balsamic moon as a place where we really get to look at the results of our efforts over the last, you know, 30 days or 25 days or so, and take note, take an accounting of that stuff, think about it, and then also think about where do we want to go next. Given that we have this concentrated, magic, right? What's next? And that's something that's really key in the balsamic moon, is that there is a real pull towards the future. There's a real pull in this moon to thinking about what's next. Where are we going next? And that also really complements our Feast of Fates, our Feast of Janus Bifrons, Mercury stationing direct, like all of these moments of let's start to actually pivot and turn towards the future. Um, as of this time, as of Wednesday the 18th, Mars has stationed direct. Mercury has now stationed direct. We have one planet left in retrograde. That's Uranus, and it is going to station direct on the 22nd. So these are the last few days of any planets being retrograde. All planets will be direct as of the 23rd, 22nd, 23rd. And so again, this is a really great time for starting to think about the future. Where do we want to go? What do we want to produce? What do we want to envision for this coming year? Okay. When we have our balsamic moon in Sagittarius, uh, sort of similar to the work that we're doing in this waning half moon of Libra, where we're kind of looking at our biases and we're thinking about, where did those biases come from? Our lived experiences. In Sagittarius, in this balsamic moon of Sagittarius, we're kind of trying to put ourselves in the place of the priest or the shaman and see all things from that very holistic perspective. And again, calling ourselves out on our biases where we see ourselves on a team and then there's the other. And trying to put ourselves in a place where we have a foot in both worlds. And that's very, very difficult. So oftentimes the easier way of working with this is seeing where we don't have a foot in both worlds and witnessing our spiritual biases, witnessing our biases to the team, quote unquote, that we feel like we are on versus them, versus those guys over there. If you don't have any of that, lovely. Then take the opportunity to look at the world from a holistic perspective. If you were a priest and somebody who you didn't like or didn't respect came to you for spiritual guidance, how would you handle that? Right? In theory, you should be able to be in a neutral place with that person. And also that's really hard. So that kind of a struggle is sort of the work that this Sagittarius moon is asking us to dabble in a little bit here. For our lunar body work, when the moon is in Sagittarius, we are resting, nourishing, relaxing, or otherwise restoring or supporting the lower back, the sciatic nerve family, and the thighs. This whole portion of the body is kind of the hinge of the body. It's the place where the top and the bottom meet. And so the lower worlds and the upper worlds meet here in this portion of the body ruled by Sagittarius. And that's very fitting for this sign that is half human and half animal. And again, kind of that foot in both worlds thing, that stuff. For our plant body work, we are harvesting, we're doing pest control, we're doing disease control, we're plowing, we're weeding, and we're pruning to encourage or support below ground growth. And of course, we've just had Plow Sunday, Plow Monday. We've got Sementive from our Roman friends and ancestors this week as well. So it sits very comfortably with the Sagittarius energy of like plowing and pruning and disturbing the earth a little bit here, even though we're in the midst of winter, disturbing the earth to ultimately get it ready for the growing season that's coming in several weeks. Okay. Then, last but not least, we have on Thursday the 19th, the moon moves into Capricorn, and that's all that's happening on that day. And then Friday the 20th, we have the sun moving into Aquarius. And as we talked about, this is one of the kickoffs that sort of indicates that Asian New Year or Lunar New Year is on the rise. It's always actually connected to the new moon, but we are about to step into this really cool astro process. We were already a month in, I guess I should really say, where the sun enters a sign, and then literally a day later, we have the new moon in the same sign. Very, very cool stuff. And then, as I said, literally 2 days later, we have our last planet, Uranus, the modern ruler of Aquarius. Wow. Stationing direct. So all of these things are one day at a time, lining up. When the sun moves into Aquarius, our thoughts can become very expansive. Our intellectualizing of things can become very abstract. We might be a little wordy. We may really get off on the idea of exchanging ideas with people. But Aquarius is very dedicated to the collective. So it's really nice that we're starting the week with, Libra, even though it's a waning moon and it's sort of this discussion of like what's not working with the group. Aquarius is like, yes, exactly. We need to be examining what the best interests are for the group. And Aquarius speaks to the collective at the largest levels. So it's our large friendship circles, our large social scenes, the city we live in, the neighborhood we live in, the country we live in, the world that we live in. That's the level of connectivity that Aquarius is thinking about stuff on. And Aquarius is also very future oriented and very rebellion oriented. It wants to encourage us to thwart the status quo. We've been, under the auspices of Saturn for some time as we move through Capricorn season. And now as we move into Aquarius, it's like, yeah, throw off the chains. We need to revolutionize things. We need to progress things. and move into the new of whatever it is that we're talking about. So let's change some stuff up. Let's bring in some new ideas, some fresh air, and get ready for whatever is coming next. A lot of it might not even be predictable. But again, we have a cool week that's helping us do some level of predicting, right? So that's really what's up when we have our moon move in, or our sun move into Aquarius. Look at where Aquarius is in your chart and what house is connected to the sign of Aquarius. As we move through the end of Yule season and we get ready to step into Imbolc season, this portion of your world is going to get a bit lit up and going to have some extra emphasis and some extra attention and possibly tension. Um, you know where to find me if you want to talk about it. Okay, let's move on to our tarot and our magic for the week. All right, so our tarot this week is the Four of Pentacles, and there's a lot of mixed feelings about this card, and I think a lot of that comes from the way that Pamela Coleman Smith depicted the Four of Pentacles in her deck. Side note, Pixie, Pamela Coleman Smith, is the first person that we know of, anyways, to have depicted anything on the minor arcana other than the pip cards, or the pips, the number and the suit. Every tarot deck that is known of before hers just has the pips. So fairly influential, right, in the history of magic and the history of oracles and divinatory systems and all of that stuff. And the way that Pixie, or Pamela Coleman Smith, depicts this card is there's a person in the foreground, there is a city skyline off in the distance, lots of towers, they really kind of look like skyscrapers, which is sort of trippy. This person is sitting on a cube, a gray cube. The sky is gray behind them. And they have on an outfit that's sort of reminiscent of the Emperor card, kind of. They have a crown that looks like a turret. They have on a cloak that maybe is black, maybe is a super dark red. They have a robe on that is a russet color with an edge of blue. And then they have a pentacle on their head. They're clutching a pentacle in their arms. They have their arms kind of wrapped around it above and below. And then they have a pentacle under each foot. And a lot of people see this card as an over concern, like a going overboard with concern around money, literally, or financial security, or just physical world or material world security. And that everything else kind of takes a back seat to the concern of this stuff. And I think that that's a reasonable way of interpreting this card. And we know that the fours are all about manifestation. And the suit of pentacles is all about manifestation. So of course this card would depict hardcore manifestation stuff, right? Like, yeah, we're making it, we're doing it. And so this person has the image of the pentacle on their head. They're thinking about it. It's under their feet. They're standing in it, and they're holding it with both hands, meaning they've got both hands in the work, right? And that's a metaphor for us. I see this as a person who is deeply concerned. Are they overly concerned? I don't know, because I don't know their circumstances. Is this a person that's a parent that's trying to feed their kids? Is this a person who is working a job where they don't make enough money in a city that's really expensive to live in? Or how do you tell those people that they are overly concerned with the material plane? Or are they as concerned as they need to be given their circumstances, and it's just a lot, right? So this is a time period of us really digging in on what are we manifesting this year? What are we doing on the physical plane? How are we going to make that happen? How much information can I get about that? How many resources can I acquire to push me towards my goals? Am I walking my talk? Those are all of the types of phrases and the types of things I'm thinking about when I'm looking at the Four of Pentacles. I don't know that this person is overly concerned. I know that they are deeply concerned. And again, given your circumstances, maybe they are as deeply concerned as they need to be, given what they might be facing. So, um, utilize this card in whatever way you want to. But part of why I think it's interesting that this person is depicted in a way that I think makes them look like the Emperor is the Emperor card is connected to Aries. The ruling planet of Aries is Mars. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. Again, is that a stretch? Perhaps. Drink your water while we're stretching. But, and here again is another sort of oblique, reference to those connections between Mars and fire and Capricorn and all of that stuff. And the color of russet is a color that we see in Pamela Coleman Smith's deck used very particularly. Russet is a color that's somewhere between red and brown. And it's a color that I often think of particularly with pears. I don't know, well, I do know why, but very specifically with pears, and you'll see it, right? We think of a pear as sort of being green, but then sometimes it gets that brownish reddish hue over it, and the skin maybe is a little rougher in that part of the fruit. It's a sign of ripeness. When a plant is exhibiting a russet color, and in particular a fruit or a vegetable is depicting that russet color, it's a sign of ripeness. It's a sign of this thing is not just manifesting on the physical plane, but it's coming into its prime. It's coming into its sweetness or the fullness of its flavor or the fullness of its potential. So again, I think that there's something here for us if we can move past the idea of this person being too concerned and move into the idea of this figure on this card being deeply concerned or deeply focused on manifesting things on the physical plane. And also the idea that they are wearing a color that depicts readiness, ready to manifest, ready to be eaten, ready to be enjoyed, ready to be utilized, ready to exhibit its full potential in the thing. Of course, this is only a 4, so we have a long way to go, but and we know that the 5 of Pentacles, right? It gets a little rough, right? Things get weirder before they get easier in the suit of Pentacles. But there's also something very interesting if we think about the 4 of Pentacles into the 5 of Pentacles. There's a readiness implied for the hardships that are in front of us or for the difficulties that we might be choosing as we choose our path into the world. So work with all of that imagery in whatever way you want to, whatever makes sense for you. If this card only brings up this person is too concerned, they're too freaked out about the material plane, work with that. Is that speaking to your process? I don't know. Maybe not. Or is this person deeply concerned, deeply focused on manifesting things in the world and being ready to manifest things in the world? Maybe that speaks to your process. Okay. And then our magic for this week. Our magic, I've said it multiple times, but I really recommend doing any and all types of divinatory work for yourself, or for a friend, or working with another person to do that divining work for you. Tarot, runes, getting your chart read, like whatever it is. This is a really fantastic week for that stuff as we really lay out the blueprint for where we're headed and what it is that we would like to be accomplishing in this coming year. Because this week is kicking off with the moon in an air sign, I also recommend making a divinatory incense blend. There are lots of really great herbs that we can work with. You could drink hibiscus tea while you're doing this work. If you want to do things that are a little more seasonally oriented, you could eat pomegranates while you're doing this work. You could make a wassail or a seasonal spice blend that has orange in it and cinnamon and ginger, star anise. Those are all plants that are going to support psychic powers and divinatory work. Um, a good incense might have some camphor, some jasmine, what else? Some mastic. What else would I put in that? Maybe a little wormwood if you're feeling spicy. Um, you could also work with broom in that particular blend. And is there anything else I might put in that blend? Maybe some mugwort to support dreamtime work. And you could make this incense blend and burn it in a ritual. You could put it in a sachet and just scrunch it a bunch and sniff it before you go to sleep. Camphor can be really intense to work with. So either you might want to add just like a tiny little bit and see how it goes, maybe open a window, or go for it, but burn it outside, or take it out altogether. It's okay if you don't have it in there, but just be warned that working with camphor in incense blends can sometimes be like, whoo, hello, we're doing it now. We're doing magic, people. This is happening. But yeah, I would say that working with any kind of an air-oriented divinatory system, and so making the incense itself can be a ritual, burning it can be a ritual, but then kicking back, lighting a candle, and looking at the smoke of the incense burning. And if you don't have the parts to make an incense blend, that's totally okay. You can use any of these herbs that I've suggested as a stick of incense. You certainly can find jasmine incense. You can certainly find cinnamon incense at this time of year as well. Um, and Mugwort is relatively easy to find. You can burn like a little leaf of mugwort one at a time and just watch the smoke trail up and just let the images come. Write down whatever comes for you. Write down whatever you see. Write down what you feel during this work as well. Write down the stuff, especially that doesn't make sense. If you've worked with me as a client, you know I always tell you that because that is our unconscious or our subconscious utilizing its vocabulary to talk to us about the stuff that it is trying to communicate. And our conscious mind might be like, why on earth are you using that? Don't worry about it. This is just the symbol that our unconscious is using to mean XYZ. So especially write down the things that don't make sense. You might even take this as a moment to sort of practice your fundamentals of opening a circle, opening sacred space, saying thank you to your guides and guardians, inviting in whichever entities that you would like to work with, if any, maybe none, that's okay too. Practice working with your elements, your 4 or 5 elements, whichever systems you like to work with, and hanging out with your incense, watching the smoke, doing some journaling, and then closing that down, saying thank you and goodbye to anybody that you have invited in to work with you, and closing your circle, right? In the Yule season, we're coming back to our spiritual practices. We're coming back to source. We're going to continue to do that through Imbolc season as well. So this might be a really nice opportunity to just practice your fundamentals. Earth, air, fire, water, right? North, east, south, west. Earth, air, fire, water. Just the fundamentals. And come back to the root, come back to the source of things. It's incredible sometimes, even me who has been practicing witchcraft for 1,000 years. When I come back to my fundamentals, sometimes it feels like the most potent magic that I can possibly do. To make Saturn happy, they're traditions for a reason, right? They are the tried and true methods for a reason. So whatever your fundamentals are, right? Those are my fundamentals that I'm talking about as a pagan. But whatever your fundamentals are, maybe you started out in Buddhism, or maybe you started out in Catholicism even. What are the fundamentals for you when it comes to spiritual practice and ritual moments and evoking magic in your world? That in of itself might be a really potent practice for you this week. So that's the stuff that I recommend. Okay. Let's do our super quickie roundup because I hardly have anything at all to mention because there's almost no astrology at all. We're starting the week off with our waning half moon at 24 degrees of Libra, and our lunar phases are bringing us through out of the cardinal and into the mutable. And with Sagittarius, we're getting ready to, well, oh yeah, no, I'm full of crap. We do have a moon in Sagittarius, but next week's moon is in Aquarius, so we're leaving the cardinal and we're moving into the fixed. We're moving into the heart of winter over these next 4 or 5 weeks. We're going to be in the heart of winter. So Saturday the 14th, waning half moon at 24 degrees of Libra. Sunday the 15th, also on that day, sorry, Venus in Aquarius, square Uranus retrograde in Taurus at 14 degrees. Sunday the 15th, the moon moves into Scorpio. Monday the 16th, nothing. Tuesday the 17th, moon moves into Sagittarius. Wednesday the 18th, we have our balsamic moon at 13 degrees of Sagittarius. We also have Mercury stationing direct in Capricorn at 8 degrees. We have the sun conjunct Pluto in Capricorn at 28 degrees. Thursday the 19th, we have the moon move into Capricorn. Friday the 20th, we have the sun moving into Aquarius. And that's it, my friends. Thanks so much for joining me. More witchcraft, more Satanism. No, probably not more Satanism. Those guys are lovely, but it's not my brand. Certainly more heathenry. And general leftist ranting coming up next week. No, but seriously, thanks for taking this trip with me. It tickles me every week. It really blows me away. And as I said at the beginning of the podcast, if there's something that you want more of, there's something you want less of, if there's something that I used to do that you wish I would bring back, let me know. Because this is an experiment. Even just about 2 years in, this is still an experiment. Next class, Wednesday, January 25th, Imbolc, year ahead astrology reports available on my website for a limited time. I am going to pull that off of my website soonish. So sign up for one of those if you're wanting it. And as I also said, check out William Kiesel, Mortlake and Company, Ouroboros Press for his Lantern series that he's doing, as well as his Hermetic series that he's thinking about teaching. Yeah, that's everything. Blessed be, heathens. Take care of each other out there, okay? Because it's a little wild out there. Blessed be.